Today's interview is with Jorge Abreu. Jorge is a very successful multifamily syndicator and has grown his business exceptionally fast. He started investing in single family and had a construction business at the same time. And those two grew, and he then eventually got into construction work on multifamily properties, which then led him to doing his own syndications and partnering with experienced syndicators. And he's now at 2,500 doors with another 1,000 under contract, which is incredible in about 3 short years. So he shares a lot of great nuggets and a lot of great information on today's show. So stick around for all of that if you want to hear how he did it. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by Jorge Abreu. How are you doing, George?
I'm doing good, man. I gotta somehow follow that intensity.
Well, I'm trying to bring some of that wrestling promo stuff into the podcast world as well. So cool. I'm glad you liked it. Well, hey man, I appreciate you being here. As I said off air, man, you're crazy busy doing so much stuff, and it's awesome to see what you're doing. But before we jump into the conversation, do you want to give us a little insight into who you are and what you've been up to?
Absolutely, man. So I've been investing in real estate for about 15 years now. Started with single family while I was going to college and studying to be an engineer. Really fell in love with the real estate investing, and eventually did enough deals to where I was able to, at that point, quit my W-2 doing engineering and focus solely on my real estate investing. And then I wanted to scale up the fix and flips, and I kind of reached a bottleneck, which was the construction side of it and finding good contractors. And that's when I decided to bring that in-house and start my own construction company. And that was about 11 years ago. My plan worked. We were able to scale the single family. We were doing maybe 40 to 50 flips a year with some wholesales in there. And then kind of worked my way up to small multi-families, and then also did some new development projects until about 4 years ago is when I really started focusing on large 100+ unit multifamily properties. Since then, I'm now under management about a little bit over 2,500 doors and got another 1,000 doors under contract, and in growth mode, man. Just looking to keep growing the portfolio and reach my goals.
What was it about real estate initially that attracted you? So you said you reached your goals initially of being able to leave that engineering job, because a lot of people, like, an engineering job is a great job, right? A lot of people would love to have that
job. My mother thought so.
So she wasn't impressed when you decided to leave it, I guess.
Not one bit. She was real worried about the insurance and the benefits. It was, I wanted to own my own business. I knew I did. My father owned his own business. A bunch of my uncles did. And it's kind of just in my blood. And I didn't know it was going to be real estate, though. But after I did a couple deals, I just kind of fell in love with the flexibility, that you didn't really, the harder you work, the more you get out of it. That's in general with owning your own business, I think, but versus working for someone else. That's kind of what ended up, I could say that I know one of my uncles owned apartments, and I kind of saw that growing up. So that might have stuck with me without me even realizing it at that time. Yeah.
And then what attracted you to, so you had a small portfolio yourself, but then you kind of skipped it up to the bigger multis. What was it about that attracted you? Because I'm guessing you were having success with the smaller stuff, right? Or not?
Right. I actually did not love to have the small multifamilies and the single families that I held on to. I didn't like having to go collect rents, and it wasn't justified to hire a third-party property manager at that point with the size. So I really stuck to the fix and flips until I almost got a little worn out from the transactional part of it, and just, from one deal to the next, constantly working to find the next deal and doing the next deal, until on the construction company, I actually started working for some of my clients were syndicators, and they kind of introduced me to that world. Till then, I didn't know you can partner with investors and take down these multifamily properties together. So once I realized that, and that, I could hire a third party property manager and have a staff on site, and they would take care of collecting the rents and handling all that stuff. I would just have to make sure that they're doing it. Yeah, man, I just fell in love with the fact that with one property, you've gotten the scale right off the bat. You got 100 plus units in one property versus having to buy 100 single families or a bunch of small multis.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people as well, they understand the scalability of multifamily, right? But the challenge is getting started, right? Because when you start, no credibility, no track record, it's kind of that challenge of getting started, right? You need that credibility and that track record to get started, but without getting started, you can't get that credibility and that track record, But how did you get started? What was your first venture?
Like you said, I was struggling with that as far as, okay, well, how do I do this? I don't have the track record. Yes, I've got the single family and I've done a lot on that side, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily, transfer over onto the multi. So I partnered with somebody, I co-GP'd with somebody that had the experience. I had never raised equity, so they also had the experience doing that. And that's kind of what got my foot in the door. I found a deal. I did the asset management. I did the CapEx with my construction company. I did all the legwork, and they signed on the loan and they helped with raising the equity.
Very nice. What was the deal? What kind of size? What kind of deal was it?
That was a smaller one, which I don't highly suggest to somebody. I don't think you need to go smaller. This was a 37 unit one, was the first one. The next one after that was 216 units. I like that a lot better. It's just, I was still pretty hands-on with the 37 unit one, just because you still can't have that on-site staff. So yeah, I suggest 100 plus units.
Well, so some people then might be like, wait, what is he talking about? 37 units versus 216 units. That's over 180 extra headaches that you have, right? Because you have that many more tenants, give or take. But explain to people why they might not understand and why it is easier doing a larger project like that.
Yeah, so at that point, you can afford, with the income you have coming in, you can afford to have your on-site staff, your property manager, your maintenance. At 216, you can even more than just one maintenance, and you can also have a leasing agent. At 37 units, you can't afford to have a full-time property manager. You almost have to find a hybrid between a maintenance slash leasing agent, and it's a lot easier when you have that staff there and you're managing them versus trying to take care of the things on site and really be in the weeds of it.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was a big lesson. Even though you're experienced and you have a small portfolio, you've done some fix and flip, and you're in the construction world. What were some big lessons that you learned maybe from that first deal? Outside of that, you want to go bigger.
that was probably the biggest thing.
Right.
But, that expenses, when you're dealing with smaller properties like that, it's really tough to keep those expenses down. And like I said, try to find the right staff that can manage those expenses and keep the expenses down. So yeah, go bigger. That's what I learned.
And do you have a niche that you kind of that you were going after initially? Like in the B space, a C class property, value add, stabilized. Did you have a niche created for yourself at the start, or were you just going after whatever you could find?
Yeah, no, we're definitely and still doing this, leveraging the construction company, looking for heavy value add deals. This one specifically was a C-class property in a B-class area. So we came in there and we repositioned the property, pretty much got rid of all the existing tenants almost and brought in new ones, and really brought that property up to a B-class.
And when you're doing something like that, for people to get an idea as well, right? So you replace the tenants. Do you ship them all out? Do you do them one by one? What are the challenges with that?
Yeah, you can, and it kind of just depends on how you projected that. We did not project to kick everybody out and just start fresh. So we kind of found a middle ground where we were doing it as the turns came. We were giving options to the tenants, like, here's an upgraded unit. You can move into this upgraded unit. If you can't afford it or you don't want to, then you kind of need to move on and go somewhere else. And we were pretty strict on that. So vacancy did increase a little bit in the beginning, but we didn't let it get too crazy, too out of control.
Right. And you say most of your projects now are heavy value add. What do you consider to be a heavy value add? Is it taking everything down to the studs, new roofs, new windows, or is what is a heavy value add? Because it can vary, right? A little bit.
Definitely, it could vary. Nowadays, I don't even know if I would consider some of the stuff we do heavy as far as what it takes on the construction side, but the fact that most units are classic, the property really hasn't been upgraded much. So it's simple things we're doing, but there's a lot of it, and for the most part, the property hasn't been turned yet. And nowadays, most of the properties you see listed and on the market have been turned several times, and there's very little value add to add, not that many units to upgrade, etc.
Yeah. And that's interesting, right? Because someone comes in and they put granite, and someone comes in and they put quartz, someone puts black appliances, and the next one comes in and comes stainless. And then where do you go after a while, right? How are you sourcing deals these days? How are you finding deals? Is it the same way that you started finding deals, or has that developed?
Once you gain that, you talked about that in the beginning, where it takes some time. So once we gain that traction, we have a lot of brokers that reach out, and true off market deals, like they either are listing it and they're giving us first look at it, or the seller, for whatever reason, doesn't want to put it out there. But it's not these off market where somebody tells you it's off market, but yet you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is that. I now also have different investors that maybe don't have that track record, that are looking for somebody that does, and they bring me deals as well. That's been pretty effective, actually, lately. And some cold calling, we're kind of going back to that. That's how we found our first couple deals, and trying to go back to that to really find good deals, man. It's just once a property is listed with a broker and it goes through highest and best, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, things are going above whisper price now, which I don't know, I had not seen that till this year. That's the first time I started seeing that, was this year, when things are going above whisper.